Hey there! Are you feeling the heat as the social science exam approaches? Do you belong to the category of students who have already covered their syllabus but need a quick revision of important topics? Or are you still struggling to cover all the topics and hoping for a savior in the form of important questions? Don't worry, we have got your back. In this video, we have got a detailed list of all the important chapters and topics that you will need to score above 90% marks in the social science exam. At first, we will discuss the most important chapters of social science before discussing the most important and scoring topics. Let's start with history. If you're hoping to score well in the history part of the exams, you should definitely focus on the chapters on nationalism in India and the rise of nationalism in Europe. These topics often come up in long answer questions, so be sure to study them thoroughly. Additionally, it's a good idea to review previous year's questions from the first 3 chapters mentioned here, as many of them get repeated. Now, let's move on to geography. There are a few chapters that are especially important to focus on, including agriculture, lifelines of the national economy, and manufacturing industries. It's also worth noting that the chapter on water resources is important from map point of view. When it comes to political science, there are a few chapters that carry more weight than others. Specifically, you should pay close attention to federalism, political parties, and outcomes of democracy. And finally, in economics, the chapters on money and credit, and globalization, and the Indian economy are especially important. It's important to keep in mind that while the other chapters may not be as important as the ones we have discussed so far, questions will come from those chapters as well. That's why we will discuss important topics from those chapters next. Additionally, it's worth noting that there is no official blueprint available for the Class 10 Social Science exam. Moving on, let's dive into the important topics within the geography chapters we have mentioned. First up is the chapter on resources and development. Within this chapter, it's crucial to understand the 3 steps of resource planning, as outlined in the NCERT. Additionally, make sure you have a solid grasp on the definitions of various types of resources, including biotic and abiotic, renewable and non-renewable. The next chapter to focus on is water resources. One key topic within this chapter is multipurpose projects, which may prompt a question about why Jawaharlal Nehru referred to dams as the temples of modern India. It's also important to study the pros and cons of dams, as well as the various names for rainwater harvesting techniques used in different parts of India. Be prepared to explain rainwater harvesting in detail for potential 5 marks long answer questions. Next is a chapter on forest and wildlife that carries less weight than the others, but it's still important to understand the types and distribution of forests, including protected forests, reserved forests, and unclassed forests. Continuing on, let's move on to the agriculture chapter. Differences are usually asked in this chapter between different farming practices, such as primitive subsistence farming versus intensive subsistence farming. Another difference may be asked on the different cropping patterns, including Rabi, Kharif, and Zaid. However, the most important topic within this chapter is technological and institutional reforms, which can carry up to 5 marks in the exam. If you need all the important short and long answer questions at one place, EduRev has a complete course designed covering all the important short and long questions for social science. Make sure to check it out by clicking on the link in the description box. Moving on, in the Minerals and Energy Resources chapter, the most critical topic to study is the modes of occurrence of minerals. There is a 99.9% certainty that you'll encounter a question on this topic, so make sure you understand it thoroughly. You should also be prepared to differentiate between ferrous minerals, non-ferrous minerals, non-metallic minerals, and rock minerals. Additionally, topics related to conservation are frequently covered in this chapter. Finally, Keep in mind that sometimes tidal energy has been asked in previous exams, so it's worth studying up on that as well. From manufacturing industries, many topics have been deleted. The most important question from this topic is why agriculture and industry are dependent on each other. Classification of industries is another important topic of this chapter. This chapter also includes map work. Wrapping up our discussion of geography, let's take a look at the lifelines of national economy chapter. One common type of question that you may encounter is to compare and contrast railways and roadways, with a focus on why roadways are considered to be better than railways. Another important topic to study is tourism as a trade, including questions about why international trade is viewed as an economic barometer. Finally, be sure to study the major seaports and airways, as these are frequently asked about in map questions. So we have covered the geography chapters. Now let's turn our attention to the economics portion of the syllabus. First up is development. This chapter often features questions related to definitions and tables, so be sure to study those topics thoroughly. In particular, pay attention to the topic of sustainable development, as a 3 marks question may come up on this topic. Make sure to study it along with examples to make sure you're fully prepared. Next, let's talk about the sectors of the Indian economy. One important question to focus on in this chapter is why the tertiary sector is growing. Additionally, it's crucial to understand the definitions of GDP, seasonal and disguised unemployment, and differences between private and public, and organized and unorganized sectors. You should also study topics like Narega and employment generation in villages. Moving on to the chapter on money and credit, this is one of the most important chapters to focus on. 3 and 5 marks questions are usually asked, so be sure to study self-help groups, the functions of RBI, and definitions of collateral, check, demand draft, and SHG. Finally, let's discuss the chapter on globalization and the Indian economy. A 5 marks question is typically asked from this chapter, so make sure you're thoroughly prepared. Study definitions of globalization, MNCs, CES, foreign trade, and foreign investment. Additionally, you'll want to focus on interlinking production across countries, which consists of 4 methods. It's also important to understand the impact of globalization on rural and urban areas, producers, consumers, MNCs, and workers. Lastly, make sure to study the role of government in the struggle for fair globalization, as this is often a topic of a 5 marks question. Let's move on to the history part of the social science syllabus. The NCERT for history should be read line by line as questions are asked from it. But still we have a list of important topics for history. When it comes to the chapter on the rise of nationalism in Europe, there are several key topics that you'll want to focus on. Specifically, it's important to understand the French Revolution and the idea of a nation, the Balkan conflict, and the unification of Italy and Germany. Other important topics include why Greece is called the cradle of civilization and what Romanticism is. Moving on to nationalism in India, there are several important topics that you should prioritize. This includes the meaning of Satyagraha, the Khilafat and non-cooperation movements, the meaning of Swaraj, the Great Economic Depression, the Simon Commission, the Salt March, and the Pune Pact. It's also important to learn at least 7 points each for the non-cooperation movement versus civil disobedience movement, and to understand why salt was chosen as a symbol of protest. When it comes to the chapter Making of Global World, the most important topics include the flow of goods such as food, capital, and people, as well as the role of organizations like the IMF and World Bank. It's also worth noting that images can be important in this chapter. Moving on to the chapter on the age of industrialization, there are several key questions that you should be able to answer. This includes understanding proto-industrialization and how it worked, why the pace of industrialization was slow in Britain, Why aristocrats preferred hand labor, how the British established supremacy in Indian trade, who jobbers were and why they were important, and who the early entrepreneurs were and how they got their money. Finally, in the chapter on print culture and the modern world, the most important topics is the print revolution and its impact. Other important topics are the growth of print in Imperial China, how did print come to Europe, the Gutenberg printing press, the role of print in the French Revolution, all the technological changes in print, Indian manuscripts, pros and cons, print and religious debates, Hindus and Muslims, print and women from conservative families, print and workers' poors in India, and the Vernacular Press Act. Civics is a crucial part of the social science syllabus, consisting of 5 important chapters. In civics part, a point to remember is that all the topics given in the form of questions in the syllabus are important. When it comes to power sharing, in the first topic learn all the 4 steps related to accommodation in Belgium given in the book. Be sure to focus on the forms of power sharing, such as vertical and horizontal power sharing. Additionally, you'll want to understand why power sharing is desirable. Moving on to the second chapter, Federalism. The important questions from this chapter are: what is federalism, what makes India a federal country, and how is India federal? The important differences in this chapter are unitary versus federal form of government, and holding together versus coming together. The last important topic of this chapter is the definition of decentralization and its steps. The next chapter is gender, religion, and caste. The most important questions of this chapter are: is India secular? How is caste expressed in politics? How is politics expressed in caste? The important definitions are related to feminism, communalism, casteism, and secular nation. In the political parties chapter, you'll want to study the components, functions, and necessity of political parties, as well as the challenges they face and how they can be reformed. A question on difference between national and state parties can be asked. Finally, in the outcomes of democracy chapter, focus on why democracy is better, how it is accountable, legitimate, and responsive. How is dictatorship better than democracy in economic growth? How does democracy secure dignity of citizens? This chapter consists of the most repeated previous year questions, and mostly statement questions are asked from this chapter. The complete solved previous year question are provided by EduRev. Check the link in the description box. Now let's turn our attention to maps. When studying maps, it's essential to use effective revision techniques. Start by learning a map from your NCERT textbook, and then mark all the important points on a map. You can use either boundaries or important latitudes to mark exact locations. For example, to mark Amritsar, you just have to remember that it is near the India-Pakistan boundary. Another method is to remember locations by directions. Draw 4 directions in the center of a state, such as Uttar Pradesh, and remember that Chauri Chaura is in the east of the state. That's all for now. If you're looking for a comprehensive course to prepare for your Class 10 Social Science exams, check out the EduRev Social Science course. The course includes chapter notes, tests, objective and subjective questions, previous year question papers, and so much more to help you prepare thoroughly. Thanks for watching, and we hope you find this video helpful in your exam preparation.